Right, so Assalamu alaikum. Welcome everyone. We're glad you were able to join us today for federal funding. Some great information on updates, and we have a guest speaker, so very excited. Just briefly, the Islamic Schools League of America, as you may know, we support 400 full-time Islamic schools in the US, which represents over 100,000 Muslim students and over 9,000 education professionals. If you're not following us on social media, I would encourage you to follow us, get the latest updates and information. Our mission, we advance Islamic education in the US from research to resources. We work in partnership with educators, organizations, and universities to foster the development, growth, and quality of Islamic education by establishing networks, providing resources such as today, disseminating knowledge, nurturing leadership, and carrying out foundational research on Islamic education in full-time schools. Today's agenda, welcome, upcoming events, speakers introduction, new legislation, Q&A, and then just information on tech partnership with Archangel, the sponsor of today, as well as other upcoming ISLA events, and then closing. So we will have about 75 minutes, so hopefully we'll get everything done. Dr. Shaza is joining us, the Executive Director of ISLA, so I'm an honor to have her as the director of our organization. Myself, Program Manager here at ISLA. And upcoming events briefly, I'll share Dr. Shaza.
Alaikum, everybody. So nice to have you all. Thank you so much. Inshallah, we'll jump into the discussion around federal programs, services, and funding. Really happy to be able to provide you all with that information, inshallah, and really grateful to TJ Chipres with Archangel and Dr. Maureen Dowling from the Department of Nonprofit Education, from the Office of Nonprofit Education in the Department of Education at the federal government. So really excited. She'll be joining us in just another 5 minutes, inshallah. So we'll get started with her, and then TJ will go in and we'll have Q&A. In this little bit of time that we have before that, I wanted to share just some of the amazing programs. I hope, inshallah, we work very hard to try and identify the needs that our Islamic schools have in terms of professional development and the different needs that our children are facing, and partnering up with other organizations, as Lisa just read to you, our mission, that can help address those needs. So I don't need to speak too long to share with you and convince you that mental health is a major challenge in all of our communities, including our own youth. And we're really, really happy to be partnering with Claire Collective to provide a mental health first aid certification for any adults working in Islamic schools. The space for this is limited to just 30 people. And so it does require a little bit of pre-work, and then 2 3-hour sessions in August on Tuesday and Thursday. So I hope that you all will be able to join. Sister Lisa will be sharing the links to all of these different programs in the chat once she gets an opportunity to do that. So that's something coming up in August. Before that, we have a few things here in July and then in the start of August. You can find all of the links to all these different events on all slides. So the first thing that I want to share with you is the Islamic School Principal Intensive. Many of you here, I know, are administrators at your Islamic school. This Principal Intensive is for heads of school, principals, and others in the leadership team to join us and get some, both the nuts and bolts aspect of principalship, as well as some of that team building and kind of, sometimes people refer to it as soft skills. People feel a certain way about those different ways that we talk about that. But, you know, getting both of like the functionality, how do you engage in the review process? How do you have courageous conversations with staff? And so on and so forth. We have Dr. Layla Kayed, who is serving now in her first year as a principal at Brighter Horizons Academy, and Sister Rasha Al-Haggan, who will be doing this. And, you know, one of the things that we find is that principals are often very reluctant to invest in themselves, or Islamic school leaders. But we find, and research shows, that investing in yourself is one of the best ways to also invest in the health and longevity and the vibrance of your institution and everybody in it. So I hope that you will consider joining us. We do have a $100 off coupon as well running right now. So inshallah, we hope that you'll be able to join us there July 28th and July 29th. Trying to get it right before the school year really goes in full-fledged. And then the next event that I want to share with you is our Professional Development Week. We checked in with a few different Islamic school leaders from around the country to find out when many of you are doing your in-service. And we found that August 4th through 8th would be a good time. This is our 3rd or 4th year doing PDW. We offer 2 sessions every day, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, depending on where you are in the country, with a 90-minute break in between. And we've got some phenomenal professional development providers that will be engaging in these workshops. We have found that this is just a really, I mean, honestly, I've been surprised at how much sohbah, camaraderie is developed by attending all of these sessions. But of course, you don't have to attend, and you don't have to ask your staff to attend every single one of the 10 sessions. The cool thing about this is that you purchase one ticket, and if you're purchasing a school ticket, it gives access to all 10 workshops for 10 staff. So if you have 20 staff, you would buy 2 of those school tickets. Or if you want to purchase it for yourself as an individual, you would purchase one individual ticket, and you would have access to all 10 of those sessions, the recordings, the resources, and contact information to as many of the PD providers as they are willing to share. So really hope that many of you will join us there during PDW. It's always been a really wonderful way to start off the school year. And so alhamdulillah, something that we're really excited to provide to you all again. And that's what I wanted to share. Oh, right. We do also have the ISLA Leadership Retreat. Inshallah, we will be doing that in Maryland, December 5th through 7th. Always a really special time. Inshallah, we have 3 different airports you can fly into. So we're excited to have you all join us in person, our only real in-person event that we host every single year. So very excited to do that. We now have Dr. Maureen Dowling, who's joined us. So I'll let Sister Lisa go ahead and take back the mic and introduce our guest speaker, Dr. Maureen, who I'm personally just so grateful to. If I could just say one word before I let you formally invite, just, you know, we sometimes have this view of what it means to be an employee of the federal government. Dr. Maureen is an educator through and through. Once a year, ISLA representatives, myself, go and attend, and many other organizational leaders from non-public education organizations go and attend the Office of Non-Public Education's annual meeting in DC. And I have to tell you, it is one of the most entertaining, energetic, lovely meetings of the year that we get to attend in person. And Dr. Maureen brings so much energy and passion and depth and sincerity to it. So we're so happy and honored to have Dr. Maureen joining us, in particular at a time where there is so much happening at the federal level, and in particular with education. Your presence means a lot to us, Dr. Maureen. So thank you so much for accepting our invitation. And I'll let Lisa go ahead and formally introduce you before you get the mic.
Yeah, so we're truly honored to have Dr. Maureen Dowling here today. She's the director of the Office of Non-Public Education at the Department of Education at the U.S. With the U.S. government. She leads efforts to ensure equitable participation of private school students and educators in federal education programs. She is a nationally recognized expert in the field. She advises on policy, regulations, and technical assistance for state and local agencies and private school officials. Her background includes roles as an elementary principal, adjunct professor in school leadership, and leader of the department's military affairs team. So truly an honor to have Dr. Maureen join us today.
Well, good morning, everyone. And thank you so much, Dr. Khan, and also Lisa, for that lovely introduction. I greatly appreciate it. And it also means quite a bit to me as somebody who has been at the U.S. Department of Education for 25 years, I'm privileged to be a civil servant working on behalf of our nation's students and teachers. I take this role extraordinarily seriously, and I know it's an awesome privilege. So thank you for acknowledging that. I really appreciate it. But again, my name is Maureen Dowling, and can you wave to make sure you can hear me, just so I don't, okay, great. I'm the director of the Office of Non-Public Education, or ONPE, as we say. And thank you for inviting me, Dr. Khan, to be with you today and participate in this webinar where the participants, you're going to learn about federal education programs. And hopefully you won't hear more pounding. They are remodeling the floor below me. Normally they stop around 9 a.m., but I apologize if you hear that on your end. But it's good for me to be with you this morning. ONPE is the liaison to the non-public school community. And in that role, that non-public school community includes private independent schools, private faith-based schools, and also homeschools. Our relationship primarily is with your national leaders of the national member organizations, such as the Islamic Schools League of America, along with a host of other national organizations. And we've had, as we've had with ISLA, a very long-standing and positive relationship. We know each other on a first-person name basis, and that's important to us because as we seek to represent your students and teachers and your interests, we need to know you. We need to know your story. Now, our mission is mandated by Congress, and it's been there since 1978. It's to maximize the participation of non-public school students and teachers in federal education programs. And we do that in a variety of ways, as I'm doing right now, in conducting presentations, providing technical assistance. We have a website, and I think maybe later in the day you might get a picture of that website and the many resources that are available on our website. We also conduct conferences and meetings. We help facilitate communication between national private school leaders and state-level private school leaders with department leadership here. And we will be doing that through our National Private School Leadership Conference in September. And I also want to commend Dr. Khan and your team for facilitating for your member schools this webinar. The way that these programs roll out and are implemented are dictated by clearly the law and regulations and guidance. At the same time, although private school officials, these laws don't apply to your schools, your school students and teachers can gain benefits and services from these federal education programs. So the better informed you are, the greater the likelihood these programs are going to be facilitated in a way that runs well. Excuse me. Now, I have 3 other team members who work alongside me: Pamela Allen, Janae Morrissey, and also Michelle Velez-Anderson. They are absolutely brilliant, passionate, energetic, smart women working on behalf of your students and teachers. And each team member has subject matter expertise. So when you want to talk to someone in the office about the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, ESEA services, those title programs, you're going to want to speak to Janae Morrissey. If your questions have to do with the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, you want to reach out to Pamela Allen, who's the subject matter expert in that regard. For logistical things, for things about homeschooling, you'll want to reach out to Michelle Velez-Anderson. And for just about all those things, you can certainly reach out to me. But the best way to contact our team, so you don't have to remember people's names or emails, it's very simple. ONPE@ed.gov. And then what happens when your inquiry comes in, Michelle Velez-Anderson will look at it and say, oh, send that to Maureen. Oh, that goes to Pamela. And oh, this is about Title I Equitable Services. I'll send that to Michelle. We also hold ourselves highly accountable to you. Our goal is always to respond within 24 to 48 hours. I would say 90% of the time, it's going to happen within that day, that same day that you respond to us. Now, we might not have the answer, but you'll get a response that says, we'll be back in touch with you once we do a little investigating on your inquiry. And on our website, along with guidance, recorded webinars you can listen to, and a host of other resources, I'm going to draw your attention to joining our ONPE listserv. Now, we do not bombard you on a regular basis with listserv messages. We really only send you a message when there's something to report, when there's maybe new guidance or a new program, or, oh, here are the schools that have been recognized as Blue Ribbon schools this year, or here's the deadline for a program your schools might be interested in signing up, participating in. But it's very simple to join the ONPE listserv. You click onto the link. All we ask for is your name and your email address. So I know you're getting ready to start your 2025-26 school year, and that you're eager to have your students participate and receive benefits from federal education programs. You should know that the U.S. Department of Education has released funding for Title I, Part A, and for the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act program, so IDA, on July 1st. So those funds are moving out to states and school districts. And in this regard, based on your school district's general operating procedures, they will be engaging in timely and meaningful consultation with you around your students' and teachers' participation in Title I, Part A, or also, or the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. So that consultation should be beginning, and maybe it happens in August for you, but consultation is ongoing. But we want you to know those funds have rolled out. Now you might say, but Maureen, what about those other ESE programs like Title II Part A that supports professional development for teachers in private schools? And what about Title III Part A, English language acquisition, language enhancement, academic support? And then what about Title IV Part A? It's student support and academic enrichment grants. We've received services under that for technology or helping create safe and supportive schools. What about those programs? And even Title IV Part B, which is the 21st Century Community Learning Centers, which is primarily after-school programs. And maybe some of you participate in those programs. So what I want to share with you on that note is the funding for those programs has not rolled out. Now, and let me explain why, because you should know why. So, as you're all aware, there's a change in administration, and given the change in administration and the department's commitment to ensuring that taxpayer resources are spent in accordance with the president's priorities, as well as the statutes that come into play for these programs, the department is reviewing those programs for the fiscal year 2025, this upcoming school year. And they're reviewing them to ensure alignment with the president's priorities, also with the statutory requirements. And at this point, that's where we are. Leadership is reviewing those. Now, when will we find out more about those programs? I don't have a date, but what I can say is as soon as we receive additional information, we will send that out to the non-public school community through the ONPE listserv. So that's one reason why you might want to sign up for the listserv today. And we know you might even have some anxiousness about this because maybe you have already engaged in some consultation at the end of last year. So we appreciate that. We don't underestimate maybe some of the anxiety that may present to you. And we know you're educators and you want to have plans, and you want to have all your ducks lined up. As a former school principal. I appreciate that. But at this time, that's the most I can say about those other federal education programs under the ESEA that require the equitable participation of non-public school students and teachers. Now, the other thing you probably have heard me say, maybe I've even said it too often in these remarks, services, 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 programs, programs, programs. You really haven't heard me say anything really, except for that one little piece about programs, and we haven't sent out the funding to the states and school districts. And the reason I use the term services, programs, is because private schools receive absolutely no title funding, absolutely no IDA funding. Sorry, we never let those funds roll out to private schools. They go to the states and or the districts, and then the district becomes the recipient. And so all the requirements apply to the district because they're the recipient, and the district makes the decisions. They make the final decisions too about what your students may receive, but they don't do that in a vacuum. The law requires, regulations require, guidance tells you how to engage in timely and meaningful consultation with private school officials. And I know later on today, you're going to get into the nitty-gritty detail about that. But that's important for you to understand. So as you move out into your school districts and you begin that consultation, use those terms about, yeah, I know we don't get any money, but I know you do. And you're required to use some of that to provide services to our eligible students and teachers because the law requires that. The other thing I'd like to say is we appreciate sometimes things don't work well, or maybe there's a challenge at the local school district level or local educational agency level. Always first try to take your concern to that LEA, explain what's not, why you think maybe this isn't happening the way it should. If at that level, you're thinking, gee, I don't think that response is adequate enough, take it to the next level. And under the ESEA programs, Title I, Title II, Title III, Title IV, there is a state designated ESEA ombudsman who by law is responsible for enforcing and monitoring the equitable services provisions in your state. And again, if you go out to our website, you'll pull down the ombudsman directory in the ombudsman corner link, and you can look up your state and say, oh, that's my ombudsman. Here's their email address. I'm going to reach out to them. And, when you do that, you always do it. I think, there might be a misunderstanding. Would love your clarity, would love your support. This isn't about, throwing anybody on the bus. It's about, I think we need to get to a little bit more clarity on something. And so that's why we're reaching out to you. Now, let's say you do that and you're thinking, based on this webinar I attended and what I heard, I think there's still something else here that I'm missing. You know what? You can always contact ONPE@ed.gov. So we can say, oh, you know what? Yeah, you do have a point there. Here's what we recommend. Why don't you go ahead, A, B, C, D, and we'll kind of walk you through what would be beneficial for you to do at that time. Sometimes, though, we might even say, we're going to reach out to the ombudsman to get a little bit of clarity on their part, just in case maybe there's something we don't know that's happening on that end to try to support you and help you. Because again, what's our mission? We're to maximize the participation of your students and teachers in those programs. So I think I've said enough because I know you're going to get far more detail into these matters today. What I'd like to say, though, again, I'd be remiss if I didn't say thank you so much, whether you're a principal, school educator, teacher, whoever is participating in this webinar. Thank you for what you do day in and day out in your schools. I know firsthand you make many sacrifices on behalf of your students and teachers. You will not be thanked for a lot of those sacrifices because it's done behind people's eyes, but thank you for what you do. We know you have great impact on your students, and we know you're there because you're committed to them. So on behalf of the U.S. Department of Education, I want you to know we don't take that for granted. And that concludes my remarks. And again, I want to thank you for inviting me to participate today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Maureen. Really appreciate that. And I took note of the intricate point that you were making of our non-public schools being recipients of federal programs and services versus federal funding, which is a very important distinction. And I'll be more careful with that language there too. Thank you so much, Dr. Maureen. Really appreciate it. See you in a few months.
Go ahead.
I'll see you in a few months, inshallah. Yeah, God willing.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And again, I wish you a great rest of the webinar. And if I can be of support and help in any way, please let me know, and my team is ready to support you too.
Thank you for taking time out to join us. Take care, Dr. Maureen.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right. Well, we do have another expert here with us, and we're so grateful for TJ, first of all, for giving space and time for Dr. Maureen to join us, as TJ had prepared a full presentation as well. And I'll let Lisa introduce TJ, and then we'll get into hearing from TJ. And after that, as Lisa had mentioned in the agenda, then we'll be opening up for question and answer. So keep your questions coming in the chat. We do see your questions. And Amatullah, thank you for posting those. Others who have questions, feel free to put them in there. We'll do the Q&A at the end because perhaps TJ will address some of those questions in her presentation. So yes, go ahead, Lisa. Thank you so much.
So we're very happy to have TJ Chipres from Archangel join us today. She brings over 25 years of experience in education, grants management, and public service to the table, a U.S. Navy veteran and recipient of the Commander's Award for Civilian Service. She is deeply committed to helping private nonprofit schools secure federal and state funding and services. So thank you so much for joining us, and we're happy to hear about all the information she has to share on some of the updates on things going on with the new administration.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Can I see show of hands? Can you hear me all right? Thank you. I want to greet you from the outskirts of Washington, D.C., a very, very busy city these days and most days. I'm throwing into the chat a link for my downloads. You will have copies of my slides. You'll have copies of information that I am going to talk about throughout this presentation. Some helpful guides if you have never been involved in ESEA title funding, and some links that you will find useful resources. So if I can, I will share my slides with everyone right now. Give you my screen. And oh, I've got so many boxes here. Hang on just a second. I got to move my. There we go. Now I can see it. All right. Can everyone see the slides?
Yes.
Yes. Excellent. All right. So the purpose of the presentation is to give you an overview of the ESEA title programs, and in the process, try to help you through that process of accessing those equitable services that we talk about. Instead of the funding, equitable services, it's goods and services. And this is what we'll be covering today. We're going to talk about some terms you're going to hear, acronyms, because you know the federal government loves their acronyms. We're going to talk about eligibility, why your school has the ability to pull this equitable funding to your school. Well, I'll give you an overview of the title programs, and in specific, the title programs that apply mostly to schools. I'll give you a getting started list and a download so that you know how to handle your initial contact with your LEA, how to find the LEA, and the questions to ask. We'll talk about how to resolve the issues. Maureen kind of talked about that a little bit, about if you receive some resistance from your LEA or from the ombudsman not necessarily responding to your queries. then there is a process to go through to handle that. We'll talk about maintaining that access to equitable services once you achieve them. And then we'll have some time for some questions. This is my federal funding history. I am a Navy vet. I have been in civil service or in military uniform for over 20 years. And once I retired from the Headquarters Department of Army at the Pentagon, that's when I started my educational career. I started at a small Catholic school in Alexandria, Virginia, where I was a technology coordinator. It was at that point where I realized that the school was missing out on about $10,000 worth of equitable services that we could have accessed because the principal did not have the time to track the information, to make the contacts, to make everything happen. So I offered to take that role on as the federal and state grant specialist. Then we were hit with a pandemic, and it's that at that point that I made contact with my boss, Josh Weinberg, at the Archangel tablets. He asked me to help schools get through the hurdles that we had for the Emergency Connectivity Fund, ECF. And after I finished my stint as an educator and as the grant specialist, he asked me to come on board with the company to help schools get through these federal programs, get access to those services. On an added note, I am not in sales. I do not do sales. All I focus on is helping the schools get through the process to achieve those equitable services and to help answer questions they may have about new programs that may be coming out. So if you want information about sales, I'll be happy to push you to one of my cohorts, but I am not a salesperson. So the acronyms that you're going to hear most frequently, the first is going to be DOE, Department of Education. You also see it as DOE little d. ESEA is the Elementary and Secondary Education Act of 1965. It came on the heels of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and it ensured that all students receive an equal education. The ESSA came out and reauthorized or renewed the ESEA that was signed in 2015. And then LEA is your local educational agency. That is the state recognized authority at a local level who is responsible for monitoring and maintaining the budgets that come down with the federal funding. So I shamelessly pilfered this from the Office of Non-Public Education. I thank Dr. Dowling for letting me know this was out there. She said if she had to give 6 points for everyone to remember, it would be these 6 points. And the first is that the law provides for equitable participation for all private schools in the ESEA program. The second is that the consultations that are the requirement on every ELA must be timely and it must be meaningful. The funds that are generated for the equitable services that come down to the private schools must be on an equal per pupil basis. That means it is student population related. The fourth is that the public agency, meaning the LEA, must maintain and monitor the use of the funds that come down from ESEA. Private schools do not receive funds. They receive equitable goods and services. The services must be secular and neutral and non-ideological, and they are supplemental in nature. That means they cannot supplant or replace those things that the school is ultimately responsible for providing to their school if they had no funding, no federal funding coming to them in the first place. That means they cannot pay for teacher salaries, they cannot pay for textbooks. So the other part of that is that they must be allowable, necessary, and reasonable. And if in the process of all of this, private schools have difficulty or problems accessing those equitable services, they have the right to file a formal complaint. But that should be the last step that you take. You should coordinate with the LAA first, work with the ombudsman next, reach out to the Office of Non-Public Education if you can't resolve that conflict, and then your last step should be to file that formal complaint. So based on figures that I found from the Government Accounting Office, GAO, less than 60% of private nonprofit schools participate in the ESEA title programs. And these are just 5 of the reasons why that I have heard. The first is they don't know how to begin. If you've never been involved in a federal funding process, then it can be daunting. So I will provide you with some tools to be able to accomplish that. Or if you already have access to the equitable services from federal funding, then I will hopefully ease the way in reference to how to handle and maintain that. It's too hard. It is difficult. It is a different process. The federal government works differently from any other business or school you might know. I hope that the resources that I provide for you will help in that process. The third thing is something that I've heard quite frequently. In fact, it was one of the things I heard at my own school. The leaders, the LEA individuals in those leadership positions keep changing. And that is true. They do. It seems to be a jump off point. They begin there and then they roll up to other responsibilities. But I can tell you how to get around that. We can't have federal funding running through the school. You will never see federal funds roll into your schools. This is held at the LEA level. They do the purchasing, they sign the contracts, and they expend the money. They give the schools the services and the goods. Receiving federal funds will obligate us to change our curriculum. And that's not true because in the law itself, in ESEA, it specifies that governments are not allowed to in any way interfere with private, religious, or homeschool environments. So it's written in the law that they cannot ask you to change or obligate yourself in any way to receive these federal funds. So this is the eligibility that I've mentioned at the beginning. All private schools, and that includes homeschools and charter schools, have the ability to receive equitable services from the ESEA funding. And to be eligible, you must be nonprofit, day or residential school, that includes the charter schools, that provides elementary education as defined by your state law. That link that I have there in the QR code and the link underneath it will guide you directly to that, that particular part F. So these are the title programs that are under the ESEA. And out of these, you have 10 different titles or sections of the law. Part 8 is just the general provisions that provide you information about the eligibility, use, and access of these funds. The other parts, 1 through 7, and 10, actually have funding that is listed in the national budget from year to year. Out of all of these, there are 5 that are specific to private schools. The first is Title I, and Title I deals with students in low-income families. If you have a student enrolled in your school, and that student would normally attend a public school that has at least a 40% enrollment of low-income students, there is funding that is available for those particular students. Title I is the largest of all the title funding, and it includes the IDEA that Dr. Dowling was talking about, the Disabilities Education Act. Title II is one that is frequently used by private schools. It is your professional development portion of the title funding. Title III is language education, instruction for English learners and immigrant students. Title IV is another really big, largely accessed program by private schools. It is the 21st Century School Student Support and Academic Enrichment. This includes STEM. And then Title VI is specifically geared for Native Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Alaska Native education. I want to talk just a little bit about Title IV, because that is an area where you may find a lot of assistance. So Title IV-A includes 3 different categories. The first is your well-rounded education. You can get equitable services and goods for foreign languages, whether it be DVDs or online foreign language programs, art, music, theatrical events, drama programs you may have within your school, PE support, STEM, and then volunteerism and community involvement support. There may be services or goods that you can receive to enhance the programs that you already have within your school for community involvement. The second category is safe and healthy students. You see, there's a whole list of preventive areas: bullying, dropout prevention, suicide prevention, and sexual abuse awareness. You can receive equitable goods and services for that, mental health, physical health, school counseling, behavior support, and nutritional support. And then the final category is the effective use of technology. That's where you can get some additional support for blended learning projects. If you have students who live in areas where they do not have ISP support, you can have mobile hotspots, and curricula support through online apps such as Khan Academy, IXL, BrainPop, Discovery Education. So the ESEA program funds flow in this manner. They start from the federal budget to DOE, where DOE then divides it up based on the student population for each state and sends it down to the State Department of Education. From that point, the State Department of Education divides it based on population to each of their school districts. And at each of those school districts, there is a local educational agency, an LEA, who is responsible for maintaining the budget at that level. The funds stop there. Then the LEA purchases the equipment, purchases the services, signs contracts for PD, and then sends those services and goods down to the private schools. Things to remember about the ESEA programs. The first is that the use requirements and the types of equitable goods and services may vary based on the state or the LEA. They still have to abide by the law as it is written, ESEA law, but there may be some nuances that will change from LEA to LEA. All purchases are going to be made by the LEA. No reimbursements are allowed except for Title II-A. If one of your teachers or one of your school leaders attends a PD that's out of the area and they incur transportation costs, food costs, lodging costs, then the LEA will directly pay the teacher who attends that PD. Again, the money does not roll through the school. It will go from LEA to the teacher. Federal funds do not flow to the private schools. You only receive equitable goods and services. This is the timeline. The target date for receiving for the federal and state officials to send the money down to the LEA is the July to August timeframe. Normally, on most other years, we have received the title funding in July. Right now, all we have is Title I. We're waiting to see about Title III, Title IV, and Title II. Once that funding is released by the government, it will roll to the state and down to the LEA. The bottom part of that timeline provides the information for the LEA and the school. So you see that beginning in March, the LEAs have these meaningful consultations. They start there and they roll through the year. Schools must declare their intent to participate when the LEA begins these meaningful consultations. So if you have not yet declared your intent to participate in title program funding, then you need to do that now before the funds are issued. So I will provide a handout on how you do that. It'll be in my downloads. Once the school declares its intent to participate, then the process begins for that school to evaluate your needs and create your list of goods and services that you would like the LEA to use money on. Once you provide those lists to the LEA will purchase the goods and services and send them to the school. And then from August till mid-May, the schools have the opportunity to receive the services and to participate in their professional development. The target date from completing all of that is mid-May. And the reason for that is because the LEA at mid-May has to wrap up all of the programs, prove that funding has been used, and then begin again in June to start the whole process again. So I've provided you a getting started flyer. You'll be able to download that shortly. The steps to participate in this program are to contact the LEA and first declare your intent to participate. They will use that term, intent to participate. Then you must participate in all of the meaningful discussions that the LEA will host. Most LEAs hosts all of their private schools in meaningful discussion consultations at one time. So you will be in with other religious schools, home schools, and receive information from the LEA at that point. The third thing that you need to do is assess your needs at the end of each school year. And I'll give you some guidance on that shortly. And you should create spreadsheets of products and services that you have interest in to meet your needs. It's always a good idea to keep a running list throughout the year so that when you get to the point where you must provide your list to the LEA, you already have something ready to go. So how do you assess your need? The first thing that I found when I was starting running the program at my school was that I needed input from the teachers and the staff. So I created a Google form survey that allowed them at, say, the April or May timeframe to go in, take 5 minutes, go through this survey and give me their priorities and needs. I've created a sample of this form and you'll be able to download it. The only thing I'll require is that you make a copy and then make sure you save it on your Google Drive. This survey is great in that it gives you a visual presentation of what the priorities are from the staff and the student and the teacher level. You want to scan your student test results and look for trends and gaps, things that you need to say, provide extra tools or assistance to the teachers, whether it's PD or actual physical goods that will assist. You want to survey your parents. That can be in an email form, asking them for their comments about what they think the school may need. Or you may create a form or a Survey Monkey survey. You want to examine and identify the challenges that your school may be facing, something that may be coming at you that you're aware of in coming years. And then meet with this is a suggestion, meet with representatives from faculty, staff, parents, and your school leadership to review and prioritize what goods and services you feel you may need. This is just a sample of what one of the graphs would look like coming from that survey. And again, please make a copy and save it to your drive. If you need help with equitable services, like Dr. Dowling said, each state has to assign an ESA ombudsman, and their job is to help the private schools access their equitable services and goods. If you have difficulty with your LEA, if you don't feel that you are receiving equitable services to the level that you should be receiving them, your state ombudsman can help. This is the directory where you can find the ombudsman for your state. So how do you maintain this? Once you get into the process, once you begin receiving equitable goods and services, how do you maintain it? The first is you get to know your LEA, and also know that these people do change frequently. So the second most important point, get to know the people who work for the LEA. Get to know the people who are sending the emails from the LEA's office, who are contacting you, asking you for specifics about the goods and services that you need. Those people stay in place and normally retire within those positions. So that's the longevity you want to hit. You want to work with these individuals. Stay organized. Every year, create a separate folder for each title program that you want to work in. Make sure somebody else knows about this, so that if you are no longer maintaining it, or the person who was maintaining it leaves your organization, somebody else can pick it up and run with it. If you personally, as a school leader, cannot manage this, find a parent volunteer. Find somebody within your staff who has an interest in doing this. Being able to be organized and be able to find this information and then to run it in the same pattern each year will keep it active at your school. At the end of the school year, conduct your faculty and staff survey and a parent survey if you choose to do so that you have information to work with when you do your needs assessment. And again, keep a running spreadsheet of your wish list items. I have provided 2 wish list forms that you will be able to download. The first is for professional development, and the second is for Title IV funding. So throughout the year, if you think of something that you want to fill one of your school needs, put it on this list. So what does the future hold for education in general? And the first question that I hear most frequently is, what happens if DOE is indeed dismantled? ESEA is a law. Unless that law is repealed by Congress, then the functions within that law have to reside somewhere within the federal government. So the funding could be pushed, logically speaking, could be pushed to Treasury. Other functions and monitoring roles that are maintained within DOE could possibly go to Health and Human Services. But regardless of whether DOE exists or not, the law has to be maintained. The law must be enforced, and it must be funded. Will the ESEA title funds go away? Again, unless Congress repeals ESEA, the funding still has to be there. Currently, in the budget that was passed just recently by Congress, it looks like the budget will be reduced over 10 years. We don't know exactly what that looks like yet because I haven't seen the figures, but as soon as I have access to the figures, I will share with you the information. This is a link to my slides. If you have a QR reader on your phone, you can pull that down immediately. Otherwise, I am providing Lisa and Dr. Shaza the links so that they can share them with you. And I am open to any questions you may have.
So thank you, TJ. Really appreciate all that super helpful information. There were several questions in the chat. One was specifically with the new legislation. They mentioned the school choice, the vouchers. Do you have any
Yes.
information on how that proposal will work, or how that's some questions on that?
Yeah, I do not know exactly how that will work. I know that school choice was a big part of the educational discussion. I can provide the information that I do have. I'll share that with you guys and you can disperse it if you'd like. I have it in written form.
Thank you. There's also questions on who's considered a school. Is a homeschooling group? Do you have to have accreditation? What forms the term of what is a school? That would be that could be a recipient or could use federal programs and services.
Okay, I will be honest, I'm not as well versed with homeschools. I would recommend reaching out to the Office of Non-Public Education to ask about the homeschool environment. But from a school perspective, any private school that teaches, that has been accredited by an authority and teaches curriculum as required by the state is considered a school.
So accreditation would be a requirement.
Yes.
There's another question in terms of like testing, in terms of like MAP testing or growth testing. Would those be considered for like the Title IV in terms of tech support?
Paying for the testing?
Yes.
No, that is a school requirement.
Okay.
It's one of those things like textbooks that you would have already paid for whether you received funding or not.
Perhaps if those are the questions I see in the chat. If people perhaps want to unmute or raise their hand if they have a question to ask.
I have a question.
Yes?
So, in order to receive the funds, we have to contact the LEA. How do you
Correct.
use the LEA for your area?
In the downloads, you'll find a getting started guide, which includes how you find your LEA. And once you click on the link, it will take you to a Great Schools link where you put in your zip code and it will tell you the LEA for that district.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
There's another
My pleasure.
question, TJ, regarding to school equipment, if that would be a by Amatullah. Perhaps Amatullah wants to explain exactly which school equipment she's referring to.
Yeah, it depends on the type.
Yeah. If you're available, Amatullah, to unmute and just ask what specifically which type of school equipment, because that will inform the response.
Assalamu alaikum. Yes, I was referring to like desk chairs, maybe equipment for the gym, that type of equipment.
Okay, so some gym equipment, yes, definitely. Balls, nets, equipment that they would use, the PE teacher would use. Yes, you can request those. In reference to desks and chairs, if you're talking about desks for students with special needs, say they've got an IEP or an SAP that requires that they have a type of a chair, the ball chairs, the bouncy chairs that help students with ADD and other disabilities. Yes, those are purchasable under Title IV.
Not general classroom equipment?
Not general classroom equipment.
Okay, thank you.
DJ, can you speak to the fact that I believe that anything purchased with title funds should be able to be returned to the district should they request it? Is that correct understanding, or is that only under?
Normally from my experience, if you purchase things like computer equipment or expensive technology equipment, they will request that you put labels on them that specify that it is the property of the LEA.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that they're going to come back and reclaim it. It means that you have to maintain an inventory of this equipment so that the LEA can ensure that they don't have to worry about fraud or theft.
And
because the LEA is responsible for these funds, so.
and I believe the upkeep then, because it's labeled, it's the LEA property. I believe my understanding is that the LEA then will, if an item broke like a Chromebook, if it's ABC LEA, they are required to upkeep that if there's a break. If that's my understanding.
Yeah, if it becomes unusable and needs to be recycled or disposed of, you do have to let the LEA know. But that's mostly for computer equipment. It's not necessarily if you order fidget spinners or things for students with disabilities or things for cozy corners or anything else under Title IV, they don't demand that you put labels on them, and they don't demand that you let them know when you dispose of them. It's the computer equipment in particular.
Assalamualaikum. To add to the previous question asked in regard to the equipment, and you mentioned computers, would technology, any type of technology equipment be included in the Title IV funding as well?
It would depend from LEA to LEA.
Okay.
Normally, if you say, for instance, you purchase or you request a 3D printer for a STEM program, if you also require that you have to have a certain number of laptops or STEM Chromebooks to support that STEM project, that 3D printer project, then you can request it then. You can't just ask for Chromebooks, laptops, computers. It needs to be dedicated for a STEM application.
Got it. Thank you.
Mhm.
I think, TJ, one of the things that you're bringing up and you've spoken a little bit about is that relationship with your district. Makes a really big difference because a lot of it, just let's be real, is to their discretion. And
Right.
so, obviously everybody has guidelines and there is a discretionary element. So figuring out I'm a really brave, courageous question there about like, even just where do you start, right? Like, how do we even identify what is our LEA? That's number one. And then once you figure that out and you find that forever person, TJ, as you kind of, mentioned, that's also really helpful to know. So some of it is a little bit of those soft skills aspects that aren't in the documents and written down, which is why we really appreciate, someone like TJ. And I know we've got others here who've been with their schools for a long time too. So TJ, if you don't mind, if for example, Dr. Shaka or Yelena, Sister Somaya, if any of those who have been doing this for a long time understand and have other tips to add as you're listening, I want to invite you to speak up as well. Dr. Shakir,
Yes.
I see you on camera. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam. Actually, our school district thank you so much for the information session. It's really helpful because many of us really just